Everybody, this is Jamin Taylor with J Hunter Photography, and today I wanted to kind of go through a new workflow that I've started. I got this new program from Topaz Labs. As anyone who's watched any of my videos knows, I really like the products from Topaz Studios, and they put out a new one, and excuse me, it's called AI Clear, and it's a new noise reduction program. And previously I was using denoise and then going in and doing some adjustments there. But I have found that the AI Clear does a better job of not only clearing out the noise, but of preserving details. And of course, that's always important when you're doing stuff like birds and wildlife and whatnot. You want to get the details in there and not to lose anything. So I wanted to take you through my workflow and kind of show you what we're working with. And we're going to go ahead and get started. This is a photo from my recent trip to Mexico. I say recent, but it's almost been a month now. And so, oh, sorry, wrong screen here. I'm actually going to be working I'm going to start out in Lightroom. I'm going to then switch to Topaz Studio, save my work, and then go back into Lightroom and then into Photoshop. So this is the best workflow that I've found. And I'm open to suggestions if anyone has anything different, but this seems to work for me. So here's a Willet, and this little guy and some of his friends were cruising the beach one evening, and I got this and wanted to go ahead and do an edit on this real quick. We're going to warm up the image. We're going to enhance the details and just kind of make this work a little bit better. So let's get started. Let's go to the develop, and first thing I always do is go for the crop. I want to make sure this is good. I want to get this other bird out of the way, so I'm going to go ahead and just crop in. I hit my space bar so that I can preserve the aspect ratio here, and you can see that it's off a little bit. Right in here is not level, so I'm going to go ahead and level that out until it looks good, and I think that looks pretty good here. Now you can see some of these foreground rocks. I was trying to get pretty low, and so I got some of these rocks that were a lot closer to me, and they kind of just blurred out, which I like. I like the look of that. So I think that's looking pretty good. The bird is kind of here on this thirds line, and his head is almost square in the middle, which I really don't mind. I don't necessarily always stick to the rule of thirds. I consider them tools, not rules. So I feel free to compose the image to my liking. So I like that crop. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Now the first thing I want to do is warm this up. It was evening and the sun was setting, so everything was much warmer than it looks in my raw file here. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit that temperature and warm this up a bit. I'm not going to go too much, but you can see these feather details here, and I really want to make those stand out a little bit more. Be able to see the sun that was coming through there. So I think I like that. I'm going to go ahead and expose this up just a notch or two. I'm going to be careful of these whites here. I don't want to blow them up too much. So I'm just going to put up the highlights and then take down the whites. Let's see how that looks. Another thing, I want to kind of warm up this top area here, so I'm going to use a graduated filter. I'm just going to hit the space bar, pull this down. Now, that's way too much going on here, so I'm going to double click tint so that I can go back to 0, and then I'm going to start warming this up just a bit, just so that it looks nice and feels good. Put this down a little bit more here. And I think that looks pretty good. Increase the clarity just a little bit. Increases the vibrance. I usually don't do much with saturation. Usually kind of overkills it for me. And I want it to be subtle. I want it to look a bit realistic and not overkilled. I don't like overcooked images, stuff that looks just way too processed. I like to try to keep it natural looking, while at the same time kind of trying to bring out the details a little bit more. I think that's a fine line, and try to balance that out. But here you can see you've got a little bit of the eye detail here and feather detail. Of course, there's a bit of noise, which is what I want to reduce when I get into AI Clear. So I think I like this. I think overall it's got a really soft and nice feeling, and I got a good expression from the bird and everything. So I think that will do that for me. And I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to say edit in, and I'm going to go over to Topaz Studio. And this is going to say, do I want to edit with the Lightroom adjustments? And I do. It's going to go ahead and bring up Topaz Studio, which some of Topaz's adjustments have been able to been used in Photoshop as plugins, but the AI Clear has to be used natively in Topaz Studio, which is also an image editor. But I have not used this as extensively as I've used Lightroom, so I kind of just go in here and do my noise reduction, and then save it, jump back into my other programs that I'm familiar with. So, not that this is not a good program. I've actually heard good things about it, but the learning curve with learning a new program can be steep sometimes, and I'm already familiar with, Lightroom and that sort of thing. So, okay, so I've got my image loaded here, and I'm gonna go ahead and go to Adjustments. I'm gonna go to AI Clear, and this is gonna start running. And you'll be able to see here, you can see when I kind of drag this around a little bit, you can see the noise that's already there, and it kind of obscures some of the details. So we're going to see what AI Clear does and how it handles this, and I think it's going to look nice. And we don't really necessarily need like insane details. I just want it to look good. I just want to be able to see a little bit of feather detail. And it's there. It's just that the noise is there too. So we'll see what this does. We'll give it just a minute here. This does take a little bit of time just to kind of run through this. But we should be just about done. It's going to give me a preview here. And then once I like it, I can just say apply. So here you can see it's already reduced a bunch of the noise and given me some nice details. So I've got a little bit of details here. Again, it's not giving me insane amounts of details, but it's given me plenty to work with. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. You can see as I drag it over, as I drag it, it goes back to the original. And then when I release, you can see what AI Clear has done. And I think it's pretty cool. You can see it really enhanced the details here. You can see like these individual feathers, which I think is pretty cool. Still got a little bit of noise right here, but I think I can live with that. Here you can enhance the sharpness. Here you can recover detail. So you can really do some interesting things with it. Like I say, you can go back and like fine tune some of this stuff. It's on auto right now. I don't know how these will make this particular image look. I've played around with it with other images, and there's sometimes where it can look over sharp, and I don't want that. So I think I'm actually okay with this, and I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. I'm just going to apply this to my image, and it's going to save this as a TIFF. And so down here is where my image is, and so I'm going to go ahead and save this. I have to save it twice for some reason, and then it'll save it back into my Lightroom catalog, and then from there I'm going to edit it in Photoshop because I want everything to stay within my Lightroom catalog, and so this is the way I found to do that. Let's give this a second here to catch up with itself and make sure that it gets saved properly. There we go. Okay, so these are done. Close out of there, minimize my window here, and then when I go back into my library, I can see here that this is now called edit.tiff, and that's the one I want. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up Photoshop, and it's doing something weird to me right now. I'm not sure exactly what it's doing to me, but try it again. Alright, let's try to open this up in Photoshop. And yes, I want to edit with all the Lightroom adjustments. So. Alright, here we go. So this is my photo in Photoshop, and this is where I'm going to do some more of the editing. Some things I noticed right off is I've got a little bit of a distraction here. I think I'm going to get rid of that little thing right there. I've got a little thing up here I'm also going to get rid of. So for that, I'm just going to jump over to the healing brush, just sample a little bit, and erase that guy, and then go over to here. It didn't quite look right, so I may have to go a little smaller with it. Sometimes it just takes a little time to get something just how you want it. I think that's actually looking okay. I think that's looking good. I'm not sure if this is quite as warm as I want it, so what I'm going to try to do, I work with adjustment layers pretty often, and I really like what they do. So I'm going to try an adjustment layer here, and I'm going to try photo filter. This is going to give me a little bit of a red pop, and here I can do the density of it. I could change the color a little bit if I wanted. If I want to make this a little bit more red, I could do that. It's going to give me a little detail. The neat thing about adjustment layers is that I could inverse this, and black conceals and white reveals. And that's the thing you got to remember about adjustment layers, is that if you have it all black, your adjustment's not going to show up. But if you have it all in white, then it's going to show up. When I turn that layer off and on, you can see the difference that it's made. So if I was to do, like let's say I just wanted the bird to be red, then I would go and invert my selection, and then I would take my paintbrush here, switch it to the white, and then I could just paint this in. Of course, my opacity needs to be a little bit more so, but you can see already it's really coming in. You can see that it's really, everywhere I paint is going to reveal that adjustment layer. So it's a pretty easy concept to get, and I recommend that if you haven't played around with adjustment layers, you need to do it. And just start playing with it and see what happens. But I'm going to get rid of that, and let's see what we can do here. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do with it, but I do know that I think I'm going to come in here into my eye, and I want to bring it out. You can see it's still a bit noisy, which is okay. It doesn't need to be like completely free of noise, but I think it's good enough for now, or for this image, because it's kind of, the lighting is a little bit different, and it's more about kind of the mood and kind of the lighting and stuff for this particular image. So let's go in here and let's try midtones, and I'm just going to try to lighten this eye a little bit, and that's a little too much. Let's bring the exposure way down. Just want to highlight a little bit of that. I don't even know if that looks right. Let's go back. So let's try something different. Let's try an adjustment layer. We're going to do brightness contrast. We're going to brighten this up. Something like that. Invert this, and now let's try painting that on. I think this might work better. We'll paint this into the eye. The nice thing about adjustment layers is you can go back and I can take this opacity way down depending on what I want to do. So I can make it 0, or I can make it 100, anywhere in between. Not only that, but I can make, I can set the layer style, the blending mode and decide what I want, what's going to look the best. And that, again, I want this eye to kind of pop out a little bit, and I just got to figure out the best way to make that happen. Usually I would just go in and dodge it, but this one is a little bit trickier. I want to figure out the best way to do it. I want Deadeye. One thing you want to try to avoid is a completely black eye. We call that Deadeye. It's just kind of like there's no life in it, you know. You want a little spark of life. You definitely don't want multiply. That's going to darken everything. I think that's too much. You can see it's really subtle on there. Let's just see how that looks. That's probably about as good as I want it right there. It's about 18. So it's not doing a lot, but it's doing a little bit. It's just highlighting the eye. It's highlighting the eye ring just a little bit. And I don't think I want to do much more of that. I am going to go in and try to boost these details up just a little bit. And how I do that is I go into my selection tool here, my quick selection tool, and I'm just going to select the bird. Make sure I've got a decent selection of this bird. Get some of those feathers in there too, because I want to bring those out. Okay, I think that's. Let me try the legs here too. Okay, so at this point what I'm going to do is go into my selection, and I want to soften everything up. I don't want these hard edges when I make my my edits here, and when I go through my Topaz Labs Adjustment. I'm going to be using Topaz Labs Adjust. Now this one is a plugin, so I can use it right in Photoshop. But I don't want these hard edges that this selection tool is going to give me, so I'm going to go into Select, Modify. I'm going to contract this by like 5 pixels. And then I'm going to go in here again, and I'm going to feather that by another 5 pixels. And what it does is just softens that edge. And I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a Command J, which is going to give me a new layer of just the bird. And so here you can see the soft edges that that selection gave me. And I just made a new layer for that bird. And I'm going to show you why. So with this layer selected, I'm going to go into Topaz Labs, and I'm going to go to Topaz Adjust 5. And like I said, this is a plugin, and so it opens in its own little window. And what I usually do, my two kind of go-to presets is Mild Details or Photo Pop. They just kind of give it a little bit more something without overdoing it. Like I said, I don't like overprocessed stuff, so I try to avoid that. And so this Mild Details, it just kind of brings out the details a little bit more. And Photo Pop tends to do the same thing, except a little bit more color instead of details. So I think I might go with Photo Pop because it seems to be giving a little bit more color, and I kind of want that. So let's just see how it looks. There you go. You can see before and after. But let's see what Mild Details looks like. I'm actually going to try both of them out to see which one I like better. So I'm going to turn that one off, and then I'm going to try Mild Details, because the Willets were gray. So I don't want to put too much color in to make them look like they were a color that they weren't. And so Mild Details is going to take some of that color out. Okay, so now I get to decide which one I like. See there, I brought in a bit more details, or do I like that one? Yeah, I think I like the I don't like that. I think that looks better. But I think it's a little harsh. You can see it really kind of brought out the details, but I want it to be a little bit softer. So what I can do is just go into this opacity, and just turn it down just a little bit. I'll try 65. It's a little bit better. It's still bringing out those details, but it's just a little bit softer, which is kind of what I want. Okay, so from here, I'm really liking how this looks. Kind of just got a nice soft feel. It's got a warm, soft feel. Again, this was at sunset, and these birds were just foraging in the low tide on the rocks and on the beach, and had some nice light filtering through, and kind of warmed up these rocks here. And so I just kind of wanted just a nice warm image. And of course, the sun was kind of up over the rocks up in here. So kind of this is almost a little bit backlit, but it was almost, the bird was almost in shadow except for these tail feathers here. Caught some sun, so, but I like how this looks. I like the overall image, and I think that's it. I think I like that. I like this bar here, you know, and this bar here. It kind of lets the bird sit in this lighter part and kind of bring the attention to it. So I think I'm happy with this image. You can zoom out and take a look at it, and I think it's pleasing, at least to me. So usually what I do here is go in, I'm going to add my little signature here. I'm going to say yes, I want to place it. And then what I usually do is either do like a burn or a color dodge, and then take the opacity way down on that. Something like that, I guess. Looks good. I don't want to like take away from the bird, but I also want people to know this is my image. So here we go. So I think that looks good. So I'm going to save this, and then we're going to go back into Lightroom. We're going to see what we did, and then I'm going to show you what I do to save them to the web, like for sharing to Facebook and whatnot. So here we go. There's my finished image. And there's my raw image. If I go in here, I can show you what we started out with and what I ended up with. Okay. So this is what I started out with here, and this is what I ended up with. You can see just a little hint of life in the eye, a little hint of eye shine, of reflection. I don't need too much, just enough to know that the bird's alive. You can see that little thing in the water there I removed. Okay, there's my original. So I'm happy with that. I like that. So now I'm going to save this for the web. And I always save a couple of versions, so I need to go into so I have a folder on the hard drive, and it is dedicated to Mexico. And I've got plenty of other Willets that I've photographed, but I like this one and I wanted to make a video of it. So this one will be Willet 3. Go ahead and save that. And these are saved at 300 dpi, which is way too big for the web. They don't need to be that big for like Facebook or Flickr or Instagram or any of those. So I'm going to go ahead and after that's done saving the Photoshop document, I'm going to go into here and I'm going to go to, I like to keep them at 16 inches. I'm going to drop the resolution down to 180, and then I'm going to call it good. And then I'm going to save this as a JPEG. Hit save. close that. It's going to ask me if I want to save it, and I do not want to save it because I shrank this down. And if I save it, it's going to keep the dimensions and lose the higher resolution. So I'm just going to say I don't want to save that. And that's a Wimbrel from my trip as well, but that's another edit. And that's it. That is, that's all finished. And what I can do from there is I can go in and I can upload this to Flickr. I'm going to go here, go to Mexico, I'm going to go to Willet. I'm just going to delete Willet 3. I'm going to add this to my Mexico album. I'm going to upload. It says yes, I want to do that. And now it's published. So here we go. It's finished and it is online, and it didn't take that long, so I hope you enjoyed this edit. It took you from my raw file to my finished file, and using AI Clear, which I really like. I think it does a really nice job of getting rid of noise and keeping the details, and seems to be like a really smart program, and I'll be using it a lot more in the future. So that's it for this video, and hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you later.